The entire financial system is essentially a debt-based system where new money gets created by pressing some buttons on the keyboard. Your dollars or euros or pounds or Indian rupees or Japanese yens or Aussie dollars, they are losing money faster than anything. Like they're essentially melting ice cube. And when you understand that, then you realize what is the hardest asset on the planet. Humans have inertia inbuilt. Humans dislike change. That's the fundamental ground principle. Humans usually don't like change. They want life to be predictable. And if anybody has any doubts that AI can't do a job, they're stupid, to say the least.
Welcome back to the Orange Peel Podcast, where we peel back all the layers of Bitcoin, money, and tech for Gen Z. I'm your host, Nicki, and today's episode is super special. And I know I say that every single episode is super special, but this one's like really, really special because my guest is my dad. You might know him online on X as Global HODL, and he's been deep in Bitcoin for quite some time now, way, way before I ever started caring about it. We're going to talk about how Bitcoin is shaping the future, from companies putting it on their balance sheets to how AI fits into all of this, and what the future of computer science looks like when the money itself is built on actual code. Honestly, the entire message of this episode is going to be that Bitcoin isn't just for the hodlers. It's not just for the people that want to build generational wealth. It's for the builders. It's for the people who want to create, to innovate, and build the future that they want to live in. So with that, thanks for coming on, Dad. I'm so excited for this.
Thank you, Nicki. I'm thrilled to be here, and a big hello to all your viewers. I'm super proud of what you're doing out here, and peeling the onions on Bitcoin and AI and technology, and what you may have. Super thrilled to be here.
Yeah, I know you're excited, Dad. This is entirely, is your idea. Planting all the little seeds and being like, maybe you should start a podcast. Maybe you should think about this or watch this video. But with that, why don't you tell us how you got into Bitcoin?
Long story. I first encountered Bitcoin back in 2013. Saw it in the news. Didn't pay attention to it. I had some funny internet money. Who cares? Completely forgot about it. Then I learned about it in 2017. But again, as number go up technology, came across a few friends who were buying Bitcoin. Learned a little bit. Bought a little. Saw that 2017 bull run go from like 3,000 to 20,000 in a matter of like 4 months. And since I have not, done my work, I haven't, paid my dues to Bitcoin, I didn't understand, but I was super happy with the investment. I sold majority of it and, used that money to take a big vacation out of it. And good thing what I did was I kept a little as just a lottery ticket because I saw people saying, oh, it's going to go and be $1 million one day and whatnot. So I was like, I don't know if it's going to be $1 million. I got my money back and then some. So I can write this off, put it on the side, and I'll ride it. I'll ride it to 0 or $1 million, whatever happens first. Right. So, and then I completely lost track. It fell from 20,000 to 3,500. It went to about 70,000 in 2021. I wasn't paying attention. I encountered it again in 2024, like around August, September. I started watching a bunch of podcasts, learning about life, learning about financial independence, learning about a lot of that stuff. During the time, I encountered a couple of podcasts that were talking about Bitcoin. And during that time, President Trump, that time he was still a candidate, he went in Bitcoin conference Nashville in 2024, and he spoke at that conference. I saw that speech, and that speech basically was like, if the presidential candidate is talking about it, there is something that's going on, but I don't know what that is. I have to understand. That's when I started going down the rabbit hole. That's when I picked up the Bitcoin Standard by Saifuddin Amos, read that, and then I was like, oh, There is a lot more to it. And from that point on, there is no end to it. I've read so many books. I've watched so many podcasts. I run a node myself. I run a small BitX miner myself. And like every other Bitcoiner, I cannot get enough Bitcoin. So that's my long story.
Man, it's so interesting to see how all that came into phases. Also, good to know where our vacations came from. Looking back now I cherish the experience, but now I might feel a little salty towards that, being like, oh, so that's what we traded off.
Yeah, now you can
for
say,
the
oh, that vacation was probably hundreds of $1,000s worth, or in future it might be millions of dollars worth. So, but hey, it's all about creating memories at the end of the day.
And as you say, life is all about trade-offs. So
Absolutely.
let's talk about how the world is changing on a macroeconomic level. You've got these big companies, these like Bitcoin giants like, MicroStrategy, that are holding Bitcoin in their treasuries, which is apparently isn't just a financial move. It looks like it's a builder's move. So what does this mean? Can you start by explaining what a Bitcoin treasury company is?
Sure. The Bitcoin Treasury company, essentially, in simplest way, you can think of some of these companies. They are buying Bitcoin and putting it on their treasury or their balance sheet, right? Just like a normal individual, when you buy and hodl Bitcoin, you're essentially putting Bitcoin on your balance sheet, and you count that as your asset when you're looking at your net worth. That's essentially the idea. Now, there are primarily two types of, in a very broadly speaking, there are two types of Bitcoin treasury companies. There are ones like who have an active operating business, just like that. Think of Tesla or GameStop. And these companies decide to buy some Bitcoin and hold it on their balance sheet, but their prime business still stays the same. Like Tesla holds 11,000 some Bitcoin. GameStop has about 4,700 Bitcoin. So that's one type. The other type is where, most of these companies were sort of zombie companies, like MicroStrategy, now known as Strategies, is a great example. It's essentially a business analytics software company. Has been around since 1989. They were actually competing with the likes of Microsoft, right? So they were profitable, but they could never become as big as Microsoft. So Michael Saylor back in 2020 learned about Bitcoin and then made this decision that he's gonna, convert all the cash into Bitcoin. Now you may ask, why do that? What's the value? Right? And the real value comes from understanding how money works. Right? And I think the best person who explains it in a very easy to understand way is Joe Bryan. You had a episode with him in his What's the Problem video. The underlying thing is the entire financial system is essentially a debt-based system where new money gets created by pressing some buttons on the keyboard. There's some database entries. And in that world, your dollars or euros or pounds or Indian rupees or Japanese yens or Aussie dollars, they are losing money faster than anything. They're essentially melting ice cube. And when you understand that, then you realize what is the hardest asset on the planet. And before Bitcoin came around, gold was the closest thing to the hardest asset possible. And we all know Bitcoin is better gold, right? So you start from, and then that's essentially the reason, when you say, okay, if the dollar is depreciating faster and Bitcoin is the fastest growing asset on the planet for last 15 years, holding Bitcoin alone could make your company a lot more valuable. So that's where this company started. Then they evolved their business into how do they raise more money using the traditional finance capital markets and buy more Bitcoin, right? So essentially they are playing the game that traditional finance plays. They are raising money, buying Bitcoin, and that Bitcoin increases the value of the company, which gives them more room to borrow or raise more capital. Then they buy more Bitcoin, which basically goes into increasing the valuation again. They raise more and goes again. So that's how this all kind of frames out. Now, how are they raising money is another layer of things that we can go into if you're interested. But I'll stop here and let you ask any follow-up question.
When you first saw, when you first were introduced to strategy, and later when you saw that Tesla was adding Bitcoin into their balance sheet, right? What went through your mind? I mean, did it make sense initially, or was it kind of like, what the heck are they doing? Like, we don't even know if Bitcoin's a real thing quite yet.
I saw Michael Saylor come on CNBC and announce that he's going to buy, convert all his cash in the company into Bitcoin. I did not understand it because I did not understand Bitcoin very until that time. And Tesla during the pandemic also came around. Elon Musk came out and said they're going to start accepting Bitcoin as payment. They did for a little while, but then they stopped and all that. Right. Anybody who understand at that point what strategy was doing or MicroStrategy at that time would have realized they are converting the dirty fiat into the strongest, pristine capital of future. Right? There is a lot of noise right now in the internet community where people are saying, oh, this is a Ponzi scheme. They are just raising money to buy more Bitcoin, and they, essentially kind of running this Ponzi scheme. They can only do it so long as they can raise more capital. And these are the people who don't understand Bitcoin. Right? The real thing that you need to grok here is Bitcoin isn't going up in value. Dollar is going down in value. If you grok that part and you can keep accumulating something that is holding its value against a currency that's depreciating way or losing its value way faster, right? Time is your best friend. Right? Your balance sheet would be so strong over course of time that you could do whatever the hell you want to do. Like today, if somebody holds $100 over on their balance sheet versus $100,000 versus $100 million, which person has more optionality? Right? Everybody would know it's $100 million, right? And if they hold this $100 million in an asset, which is holding its value against a currency that's losing its value, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years down the road, their balance sheet would be so strong that they will have the optionality to do whatever the hell they want to do. Right? So right now, what they're trying to do is, I don't know if you remember the chart that Doc, I think the chart is by Jesse Myers, where he shows the global assets. It's about 1 quadrillion worth of assets, and Bitcoin is a small, tiny slew of like 2 trillion, somewhere like 0.2% of the entire global assets. What strategy right now is trying to do, and there are a lot of followers of strategy. So, one good thing Michael Saylor did was, as they tried and made mistakes and learned, they created the playbook and published it for everybody else to copy. Right? So there are like close to 150 companies which are actually trying to follow Michael Saylor's playbook. Some are following it, but the others are basically just buying Bitcoin and holding it on the balance sheet, and everybody's doing things slightly different. But what Michael Saylor especially is trying to do is trying to inject Bitcoin into the different types of capitals, right? Real estate, equities, fixed income, like, collectibles. Like, is trying to inject Bitcoin into all of these types of capitals, because a lot of these capitals are kind of locked. Like they're kind of, trapped. So let's take a step back, right? So, if you look at a lot of old people who have, pensions either funded by the employers or annuities that they have bought, those companies that are managing this capital, they have an obligation to give them fixed returns. That's how the pensions are formed. You pay for 30 years, and then every month they're going to give you $2,000. If so, this $2,000 every month to every pensioner is a liability that these companies have that they need to pay. And in order to pay that, they can't directly go and buy Bitcoin because Bitcoin has a lot of volatility. Right? Bitcoin goes up 200% in a year and then falls 70%. And and that's the only reason it goes up that much, because the volatility is vitality, as Saylor says. So, like, what he's trying to do is he's creating all these different types of financial instruments which are targeted to these specific capitals, right? So he recently launched 4 different preferred instruments: Strike, Stride, Stretch, and Strife. But the basic thing to keep in mind is he's just trying to inject Bitcoin into different types of capital that does 2 things. So one, it brings in more capital into Bitcoin, which increases the market cap of Bitcoin. It increases a lot more capital flowing into Bitcoin. That's how the number goes upward. But more importantly, it's injecting a pristine capital asset into these melting ice cube, financial instruments that will add more stability to it.
So is this the beginning then of seeing more companies be Bitcoin native or adopt Bitcoin the way Strategy is, where they build directly on top of Bitcoin instead of using these fiat systems?
Yes and no. I know there are a bunch of Bitcoiners who are just hoping for a sudden demise of fiat system. I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. The fiat is going to be around for a very, very long time. And for the simple reason, a lot of our world stands on fiat systems, but you think the incumbents here are not going to give a fight? They will. They will they'll fight tooth and nail to actually, not let the system die. But that said, there will be, at least in my point of view, there will be many, many companies that will be Bitcoin native, built on top of Bitcoin, for the simple reason Bitcoin is the pristine capital, right? When you have Bitcoin on your balance sheet, when you're building on top of Bitcoin, you have a lot of optionality. So the way I see it, the world panning out is, in future, there will be a handful of hyperscalers, like companies like Mag7, Microsoft's, Amazon's, Google's, Meta's of the world. They will be the hyperscalers owning the infrastructure layers. Actually, no, before I go there, I think this is a nice segue into how Bitcoin kind of helps build for AI. And we all are seeing AI coming in from all ends at a astronomical speed that we have never seen before. Right? It's very hard to imagine that it's not even 3 years since ChatGPT launched. Right? And going from a nascent technology that people said, oh, it's a nice toy to play. You can go talk to it. It will produce stories. It can, you can ask it to write a joke for you or a story for you and whatnot. To now it's threatening pretty much every white collar job. Right. And then there's a next layer of it where these humanoids, they are gonna threaten every blue collar job. Right. And some white collar jobs too. Right. So in that world, if you look at that world, if you believe in AI, that AI is coming, AI is here to stay, it's gonna, sure, it's gonna cause lots of disruption in terms of what AI can or what I cannot do. But I also see it as it is gonna make humans super productive. Like, you would be able to do things in minutes that took you weeks before, right? In that world, think about, what does an AI need? AI is not a human employee. So for example, let's say you are running a company, you start your own company, a software company, and you are building some type of service. Great. And instead of hiring 5 employees, you hire 5 AI agents. They are doing different things. One is doing accounting for you. One is writing contracts and reviewing contracts for you. The other one is doing the content and marketing for you. The another one is your personal, secretary. And then you have one more who's more of your customer support agent, whatnot. What does an AI agent needs to function? It needs practically three things. It needs compute, right? Where does all this inferencing happen and whatnot? It needs power and it needs internet, right? Now imagine if these AI agents are, as long as they're talking to human and there's a human interface, like, oh, if they know Nikki's running a company and there's a customer on the other side who's also a human, the invoicing can happen. They can write you a check or do a wire transfer to you. But imagine, take it a step forward. The day AI agents start talking to AI agents, right? So instead of AI agent, like you doing a contract with somebody and asking the AI agent to review, your AI agent is going out and finding all the people who are interested in working with you and doing contracts with them, right? If they need to settle transactions amongst themselves, what is the currency for AI? They can't do dollars. They can't pass KYC. They can't open a Bank of America bank account. How do they transact? They transact with Bitcoin, right? It could be Bitcoin as in its current form. It could be a stable coin built on top of Bitcoin. Like the stable coins today are on top of fiat. So I'm not a believer, especially because our base currency is US dollars. So holding a tether or a circle USDC is same thing as holding US dollars. So why do I care? But imagine there would be a world where the trust in fiat currencies is completely demolished. In that world, AI that potentially would be a stable coin based off of Bitcoin. Like you can imagine a world, there is a stable coin where this 1 unit of this coin is equal to 1 Satoshi or 10 Satoshi or whatever the denomination is. And that's how we price everything. And instead of moving Satoshis around, you can move, the other pegged stable coin around because it can settle much faster, right? And that becomes the currency of AI. So yes, I believe Bitcoin will support AI and all AI and Bitcoin native companies because Bitcoin is the currency of future. Bitcoin is the currency of AI.
Wow, interesting stuff. I mean, it sounds like AI is changing the game completely. And what you said about AI agents interacting with other AI agents, I never even thought of that. Like I can't even picture a world where, I have an agent and I send that agent to go find me some people and then it comes back and it's like, I found you this person and this person, but all they did was interact with other agents. So it's crazy to think about. But the thing with AI is it's creating a lot of uncertainty, especially amongst Gen Z, right? I tell you stories all the time of my friends who are either very pro AI or very anti AI. Some people like you and like I see it as a tool for progress, for productivity. Some people see it as a friend to the point where they're using ChatGPT as their therapist, as a support system, which is a whole issue in itself, right? But there are a lot of people that see it as a threat, either to jobs, to human intelligence, or, to the environment, to energy. So you framed Bitcoin and AI as complementary, almost like two sides of the same coin. You know, um, but Bitcoin is fixed and it's predictable. AI is constantly evolving. So why do you think that we're so, divided? And to people that are on the opposing side as you, what do you have to say?
So I think the biggest reason for this, I believe, is inertia. Humans have inertia inbuilt. Humans dislike change. That's the fundamental ground principle. Humans usually don't like change. They want life to be predictable. I wake up, I do this, I do this, I do this, I do this, right? Now, is this the first time such a revolution or displacement that's happening in the human life? Hell no. We have seen plenty of them in the past, right? The biggest one, it started from fire, then the wheel, then industrial revolution, and personal computer, electricity in between somewhere. And then most recently, the mobile phones, and before that, internet, right? These things bring a lot of change. And humans, because they don't like change, the first instinct is to, stand up against it, fight it. No, I don't like it. This is bad. And we we saw that with Bitcoin. There's a lot of commentary around it's bad for environment, it's this and it's that, and blah blah. Today we are 50% or more using renewables today for Bitcoin, right? Similarly with AI, there will be a lot of pushback. The other aspect of this change is AI is coming faster than anything humans have encountered ever. Going back to what I was saying a few minutes earlier, it's very hard to remember that ChatGPT is not even 3 years old, right? Like, nothing has grown at this pace. Like if you look at if you plot different technology or different, like these displacements on a chart, you'll see AI is practically a hockey stick straight up, right? So I think that's the reason why some people are seeing this as an opportunity. I need to learn, I need to double down on this, and that's how I will upskill and be more productive. On the other hand, there are people who are like, my life was going okay, I had a job, I do this skill, and this thing is going to come and displace me. What will I do? I'll be jobless, blah, 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 blah. Right? Nothing new. This rodeo has played many times. It'll play out again. I think the most important thing to remember here is AI makes us smarter. And if anybody has any doubts that AI can't do a job, they're stupid, to say the least. Why I say that? On an average, human IQ level is about 100. Sure, I agree. IQs, this might be a flawed scale, but this is the best approximation we have when it comes to intelligence. With GPT-5, IQ of AI has already crossed 130, right? So give it another 6 to 12 months, AI would be able to do 70 to 80% of the jobs, 70 to 80%, right? So anybody whose job is to just sit behind a computer screen, right, and talk to people, very soon we'll be in a place where you wouldn't know you're talking to me or an AI. We're not too far from that place. We know, a lot of high school and college students use AI for their homework assignments, right? So, like, this is displacing the entire human society at every level, right? So, in that world, we have to rethink how do we build human intelligence. So, the way I am thinking about this is majority of the people in next 2 to 5 years, their job would not look anything like that it looks today. Either the job would not exist or job would look completely different, right? Which means there'll be a lot of displacement. A lot of people will lose job. I wouldn't be surprised if I lose my job, right? I'm prepared, right? Finding job for a lot of youngsters we know is already very hard. Like you know it. A lot of your friends, your seniors from high school, so we're just coming out of colleges. They're all going through this day, right? So that is the reality of the world. AI is here to stay. I think the best thing I would recommend youngsters do is first master AI, learn to work with AI, talk to AI every day, get ahead of it. Don't see it as your enemy, see it as your friend, see it as your assistant, see it as your helper, somebody who can help you do things at 10x the speed, right? The second thing is invest into human connection, invest in human network. I believe that anything that requires human network to build, a collection of humans to build, will be the last thing to go. Probably the last thing to go would be anything that is in the public sector controlled by government where efficiency is irrelevant. But that's my take, right? So learn AI, invest time in building human connections and build diversity of those connections, like find people from all walks of life, like build a network that can support you in your highs and in your lows.
So to kind of combat what you're saying a little bit and to just express the other point of view. There are a lot of people who are boycotting AI completely right now, and that's for reasons like it takes a lot of water to cool the data centers. So, that they're building these data centers apparently in lower income neighborhoods, and so it's doing bad things to, their environment, and other things like deep fakes with the introduction of AI content, right? As you said in one of your examples, you said that there might be a day where I wouldn't know if I'm talking to you or an AI of you. That raises a lot of safety concerns, number one, but also a lot of trust concerns. And one of Bitcoin's mottos is don't trust, verify. How do you apply this to AI, right? If we enter a world where AI is being used for content and, I pray that this never happens, but let's say I'm making a video and I put it out on my channel and turns out it's not actually me, it's an AI of mine, and that's not something that I would ever say. How would we as humans go about verifying that?
Um, Very good question. I think this is no different than when the internet started. There was a lot of we know there is a lot of hackers that are out there, a lot of spammers out there. So it's always a tug of war where the hackers or the scammers or the spammers, they're always like kind of moving in lockstep. They find another vulnerability and then we fix it, and they find another one. So and this is practically the reason I feel while AI might displace a lot of jobs, but there will be a lot of new jobs that will be created. So I think there will be multiple jobs that I believe to build those guardrails. But I think there's a Uber thing that's at play right now, which is AI right now is built on an existing infrastructure, which is basically internet, right? We know internet has lots of flaws. There is no solid identity network, right? People say, yeah, there's an email address, but yeah, you can spin off an email address a dime a dozen, right? Passwords, for example, are, kind of broken by definition. People tend to reuse their passwords. A cyber attack on one website reveals passwords for thousands of others, right? There's so many of these things that probably should be rethought. So I believe there will be a lot of building over the next 10, 15, 20 years, starting from the ground layer, and then to like what technologies do we build as the foundational layer, and so on and so forth, right? But I want to address the point that you talked about around the consumption of water, low income area. I believe Bitcoin is a natural balancer to the power grid. What do I mean by that? And I think on your episode, Sal Pineda kind of talked briefly about this as well. Bitcoin gives us an opportunity where all these Bitcoin miners can make investments in parts of the world where it wouldn't have made any any business sense earlier, but now they can build power plants in places where, like, there is no life. For an example, like you can go to the coldest part of the world, build a power plant there, start Bitcoin mining. Bitcoin mining pays for this plant, and then you can distribute all the excess power you have back into the grid, right? And then you need many, 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 many such power plants. Like, we need all types of powers today in the world. Like, so there is this guy, Jody Visser, that I like to listen every week. He usually releases videos on Saturdays. He talks a lot about AI, Bitcoin, and from the putting a traditional finance lens on that as well. So on one of his recent episodes, he talks about, I think Oracle a couple of weeks ago, their stock jumped like 40% a day. And the prime reason for that was their demand was so high that they can't even fulfill that demand. Like, they are sold out, but the demand line is building up, right? And the big reason is not enough power, there are not enough chips, there are not enough data centers, right? So we need to build all of that for AI thing to play out. So if people are worried about, oh, I might lose my desk job, I'm sitting behind them, all I'm doing is responding to emails. Sure, that job might go away. But there might be other jobs, like go learn how to build a data center, right? Go learn how to, work in a chip factory. Go learn, get electrician license, like learn new skills. So there will be a lot of building that will be needed in the US and worldwide, which will create a lot of new job opportunities for people. Yes, the jobs won't look like anything like today, but there will be a lot of opportunity. So the choice is yours. You can either be in denial and say AI is not going to do anything, it's all a hype, or basically see it, yeah, this thing is real, this is here to stay, right? And I don't think there is any doubt left, at least in my mind, that this thing is here to stay. I'll stop there. I'll let you ask follow-up.
So it's interesting that, you made that point about how Bitcoin is bringing it's coming into areas of the world where, traditional businesses might not have gone into. Because I was watching the Network State conference that we talked about, and there was this girl who was presenting there, and she was from Suriname, which is a very small country in South America, right? Nobody goes there. There's no foreign investment there. There's no big businesses that have headed over there. It's a very small economy that runs solely off of the locals. So what's going on right now is Bitcoin miners are going there because it's very resource dense. So she was talking about all that, and I just thought it was really interesting to see because you see such opposing sides to the arguments. But let's talk about AI and Gen Z and college students, because this is a Gen Z podcast, and we are terrified. Most of us are. I'm terrified. I'm studying computer science. You were a software engineer in your early career, and you're still in tech now. So, what is going on with tech right now with AI?
Nothing different than what I've already said, but true that bunch of tech is getting displaced. Right? So, in order to understand what's happening now, we have to rewind ourselves a little bit and see what has happened. Everybody, who's in their mid-career, midlife, 35, 40 years old, they would remember what happened in the late 90s, the dot-com bubble. A lot of TradFi, a lot of people in tech are comparing AI to dot-com bubble. What happened during that time, right? During that time, internet was a new thing, and everybody and anybody was figuring out that the moment you put a .com in your name, you suddenly become an internet company, and then fundraising, VC money just flows in, right? Because of that, a bunch of companies who had no, idea, who had no product market fit, who had no meaningful product, they started raising money left, right, and center. And the second thing that was colliding at that time was, you probably won't remember this, or might not even have heard about it. There was this idea of Y2K bubble, where the thought was the computers at that time, when they stored the date, they stored 2 digits for month, 2 digits for a day, and 2 digits for the year. And since it all started like 1970s or so nobody thought what's going to happen 30 years later. But in 99, it was like, oh, after December 31st, 99, the day will go to 2000 and the last 2 digits will be 00. And a lot of systems probably would start recognizing it 1900 instead of 2000 because you're only looking at that. And that will break a lot of stuff. So the lot of money was flowing in to fix that problem as well. It was the biggest nothing burger of all times. Nothing happened. Dot-com bubble crashed. And if you, look from that time, majority of the companies from that time don't even exist. Companies like Amazon, who went public in 1994, they lost about 90% of their stock value. The stock dropped by 90%. Right? People did not put people couldn't fathom the idea that Amazon would be what it is today. Because what people were thinking at that time was Amazon sells books. So what can they do? They can probably take the entire market of selling books. Nobody thought, or very few people understood, that Amazon would be selling everything back, right? And look at Amazon today, like $2.5 trillion, right? So a very few companies out of that time came out and became stronger and stronger and stronger, primarily because of the network effect, right? The more customers the company has, they bring more products. They bring more products, that drives more customers, more customers, more products, more products, more customers. That has been true for entire Magnificent Seven. Be it Amazon, be it Google, be it Meta, be it Microsoft, name it, right? And these companies became so large in last 15, 20 years, just off of software, pure software, right? This is what these companies do. They're not, and sure, some of them have hardware things in there, but they're not building out large infrastructures. Sure, a lot of these were built on internet infrastructure that was laid out before these companies became what they became. What is happening now is the moat of being a software company kind of going away, is fading away, because anybody could go on Cursor.ai, Replit, or any other AI tool and kind of write software by just talking to the AI. Like, you don't have to be a software engineer to write code. Right? Sure, it might not be the best quality of code, highly performant code, but you could still do it. Right? So if that mode goes away, what do the companies do now? And that's where building the infrastructure for AI would lean in. And that's what you're seeing right now. All these companies, NVIDIA, OpenAI, Meta, Google, Microsoft, Amazon, they all are pumping billions of dollars into building AI. So the way I see this thing is panning out is, as I started saying earlier, which I backtracked from at that time to build this entire precursor, is there will be a handful of large hyperscalers. These are the things that will build the infrastructure for AI, that will build the data centers, the chips, probably some of the large models that people will use to build their products. And then there will be a ton of 1 to 10 people companies built on top of AI, right? And they are doing like 100 million ARR, like annual recurring revenue, right? So my advice to the Gen Zs, people who are studying computer science and whatnot, do not aspire to get a job in one of the large tech. That's going to be a career suicide. Right? What I would rather recommend is learn AI, learn business, get into entrepreneurship. Right? And that's where we talked about building building a network of humans it comes in handy. Find your client, find your 1, 2, 3 partners that you can combine together. Diversity becomes important. You don't want everybody who studied computer science. You want people who have different strengths. And then you all can leverage AI. And between 4, 5, 6 of you, you can build a business that generates hundreds of millions of revenue. And the most important thing to remember here is the barriers to entry to start a business are actually going to drive towards zero, right? Because practically AI is almost free. Like, it's like $20 to get ChatGPT subscription, $200 if you want the heaviest model that they have, $200 a month, big deal, right? Sure, you need $200 a month there, maybe, $1,000 to $2,000 a month on AWS or Azure or Google Cloud to do some sort of compute. And there you go. That's all you need.
Wow. So it sounds like the future then is going to be a bunch of AI startups.
Yes, that's true. Especially if you want to do something related to tech, right? If you don't want to do something related to tech, then maybe you need to wait for the humanoids if you want to go into entrepreneurship. On very recently did some math and then said that their Optimus robot, or the humanoid, the cost of running that is $1.50 an hour. Right? So imagine you can get a robot for $1.50 and it can do whatever the hell you want them to do. Even the cheap, like in the United States, the minimum wage today is like somewhere between $17 and $20, I believe, in that range. And you're getting a humanoid for $150, which has intelligence level of, higher than potentially everybody around you. Why would you not want that for over an employee? And these things don't sleep, they don't fall sick, they don't want food, they don't want shelter, they don't want a 401k plan, they don't need any types of benefits. So what is there to lose?
Yeah, I mean, you think about it. It as a business, it makes sense. It makes sense. But I think thinking about the human implications of that is where people tend to get a little like that's very unethical and stuff. But let's bring it back to Bitcoin because this is a Bitcoin podcast. Bitcoin is essentially the first money that we've had that is code, right? It is, if you think about it, it is an algorithm. You have the Bitcoin protocol, which uses hash functions. Like these are computer science principles. So for those of us that are studying CS at uni, that essentially like changes everything, right? Because this is money that's in a realm of what we understand. And I think for the most part, when you talk to most CS kids, they're not really finance bros or econ bros. They don't really care about what's going on Wall Street. So they don't really care much about money. But this is the first one that we understand. So how do you think Bitcoin changes and or fits into what CS means as a field of study?
Since I am a CS grad, granted many years ago, I can basically share how it has changed me. I think Bitcoin, as anybody who has done their work on Bitcoin, Bitcoin's founding principle is proof of work. Right? In order to understand Bitcoin, you have to spend hours. Right? Otherwise, it feels like, oh, it's the internet funny money, it's a Ponzi scheme, it's going to crash one day and whatnot, right? You have to understand not just how Bitcoin works, but also how money works, right? So that's what Bitcoin does. Where computer science comes in handy is computer science teaches you two things in my mind. The first is problem solving, and the second is the desire to learn new stuff, right? When I started coding back in the day, when I was coding in C++ and Unix, right? That's what I did. And from there on, I have seen technologies evolve every couple of years. We were either learning new technology, working with new technology, or designing new stuff with new technology. And it kept on going and going and going and going and going, right? So that basically kept us on our toes to keep learning new stuff. Why this is important is the more you get into Bitcoin, the more you try to learn Bitcoin, you realize there is probably a lot more to learn than you have learned. Right? So this desire, this skill that you build as a computer science student to continue to learn and try to solve problems can very well be applied to Bitcoin in continued learning about Bitcoin, because the more and more you go down the rabbit hole, you learn, oh my God, it can do this, it can do that, and you keep swinging. And then very soon you reach a point where you start realizing majority of the problems in the world are because of the broken money. You fix the money, fix the world. Natalie Brunel says it. And Bitcoin fixes the money. So I think that's what I would say. Be open to new, learning new stuff. Be open to computer science doesn't tell you have to be a coder. Computer science gave you a skill, and being an engineer gives you a skill to solve problems. Any type of engineer, computers, mechanical, electrical, whatever you may have, right? As an engineer, the biggest thing you do is you solve problems. And one thing that I can tell you for sure is humans will never run out of problems to solve. So everybody who's scared of AI, don't be, because humans will come up with the next level of problems that needs to be solved, right? Before AI, some people would have thought we have no problems left to solve. But no, we find out, no, there are many problems to be solved. But that humans will never have a dearth of problems to be solved. And only thing that will happen with this is humans will keep moving up the value chain. There'll be more meaty, more complex, more involved problems that humans will solve. And anything and everything that is mundane, anything that could be automated, anything that has previously been solved and requires scale will be delegated to AI.
Yes. So if you were 20 today and you were studying computer science, what are the skills that you would double down on to succeed in a Bitcoin and AI world?
As I said earlier, focus on problem solving. It doesn't matter what programming languages do you know. You can pick up programming languages any day, or you can have your AI agent code for you. Focus on the fundamentals of computers. I think it's going to be still a very long time until AI can actually write code that is going to be scalable to millions and millions of customers. A lot of good software engineers would be required for that. Learn about business, learn about money, and build network. I cannot emphasize enough building network and learning about business and learning about money is going to be so important. And without saying, it goes without saying, master AI. Do not shy away from AI. Spend time with AI. Like today, if you are not spending 15, 30, 45 minutes a day talking to AI, you're not doing justice to yourself. Right? Cut down on your coffees, cut down on your alcohol, cut down on all the junk food or the dessert that you're craving for. Get yourself a ChatGPT subscription. Talk to it. Talk to it every day. Talk to it about random topics. Right? Do not do not let it go easy. Keep asking follow-up questions till you are satisfied. That's a good way to learn new stuff and also push your thinking forward. Like one thing I'm hearing after talking to a few people is like, oh, AI is gonna make people dumb. No, not using AI is gonna make you dumb. If you're using AI just as AI, write an essay for me, you're not reviewing it, you're not challenging it, you're not pushing the boundaries, yes, you're becoming dumber, right? But if you are pushing AI to do better, challenging it at every step of the way, checking the work AI is doing, it's going to make you smarter, not dumber. So that's my 2 cents.
That's a great point. And it sounds like, Bitcoin, it looks like it's going to be the foundation for a lot of the things in the future. And AI is going to be the tool, right? It's going to be the scalable tool that we've got. So I just love what you're saying about, how computer scientists and engineers and even those aspiring to be these engineers, right? It's about the skills that we learn during our degree. It's about the skills that we learn working with computers and solving these problems. So to everyone listening, Bitcoin is the future. And I think my dad's made a great point at hammering that in me as well as you. So now you probably understand how I got convinced, because he's really good at convincing people. But most importantly, Bitcoin, AI, all of these skills are for those who want to build something real, who want to contribute something into a world where, yes, you have a lot of uncertainty going on, but this is the most opportunity that we've had for innovation, for making a difference, for enacting change in history. And it's going to be like this for probably like 10, 15 years. So, whether your thing is you want to start a company that's protecting its balance sheet with Bitcoin, or you want to teach AI how to transact in stable coins, or you're a CS student and you like building open source tools, the people who build are the ones that are going to shape our future. So, Dad, thank you so much for coming on this one, and obviously being one of those people who showed me very early on that Bitcoin isn't just about money, right? It's about the mindset. It's about the other things that you start to believe in once you start believing in Bitcoin. Freedom, ownership, AI, a future that works for us. So, last question that I like to ask everyone when they come on is if you could recommend one book, podcast, resource, anything to Gen Z who is starting out learning about Bitcoin, and maybe this can be about AI as well, what would that be?
It's very hard to say one thing. I'll probably have to give 2. If you want to learn about Bitcoin, if you have not read the book Bitcoin Standard, I would say, go pick it up. That's the book that orange pilled me. That's the book that has orange pilled many of the Bitcoiners I know online. Coming to AI, I think there are many different podcasts, but there is a very recent podcast on BG2 podcast where NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang came in and talked about AI. And then, there's a lot of, FUD and noise around the recent $100 billion investment NVIDIA made into OpenAI. People are showing the memes where there is this extension cord and the plug is getting plugged back into it. It's like a circular investment. Don't fall into the trap. Listen to that. Try and understand what's changing and hear it from the people who are at the forefront of driving this change. Right? Who better to talk about AI than Jensen Huang himself, who transformed the company from being a video graphics card company design or aiming to be a facilitating or helping accelerate the gaming industry, and then to pivoting to driving AI. And look where the company is today. Go watch that. I think that episode came out last week. It's a mind-blowing episode. And do not stop learning about AI.
All right. Well, that is a great note to end things on. I'm going to link all of the resources that were mentioned in this video, including the two that, Dad just mentioned, as well as What's the Problem and all of the podcasts that you mentioned throughout the interview. So I will see you next time. Until then, stay skeptical, stay curious, and stay orange-pilled. I'm your host, Nicki, and I'm so excited to see you again.